Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's happening, everybody? Hope you guys are doing great today. It's another day in sobriety, another day in spirituality. It's another great day to be alive. What's happening, man? But check this out. Before we get this video podcast started, if you would please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those of us who are still in the struggle of the things that keep us bound down in today's toxic world, man. So again, please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. What's happening, my brothers and sisters? What's going on out there in the world, man? You guys doing all right? I guess I'm doing pretty good today, man. The day had just, went pretty well today, man. You know what I mean? Check this out. I got a new clean cut. What do y'all think? Do I look good or do I not? I don't know. I think I look all right. I had that real shaggy, daggy stuff before. That's why I always wore a hat. Hated my hair, but now that it's gone, thanks to the ex, peace, she hooked it up. So anyway, yeah, so what's up, man? Today, man, you know what? I know I've been saying this for like the last couple of videos that we're going to get back on the Cosmic Power Within You book, but man, there's always something else that comes up, you know what I mean? Something else that just hits my mind and it's just like, man, I got to get that out there. You know what I mean? It's something that I just have to talk about. And today I want to talk to you guys about the addiction, about adversity, but is there a way to get out of it without having to go through this big structural freaking concept of intervention, quote unquote, maybe, treatment centers and this whole label that's put on when you have to deal with, drug addiction, alcoholism, there's centers for many different things as far as addiction goes, eating disorders and people, anorexic and that sort of thing, you know what I mean? Depression, PTSD, there's just a lot. The list goes on and on, right? And I'm wondering, I'm thinking about it in the sense of how can we share a message with somebody who's out there listening today that is thinking, man, you know what? I can't get to a treatment center. You know what I mean? I don't have that accessibility to get to these facilities. You know what I mean? I'm just a person that's out here trying to live life and unfortunately bound down to this addiction of some sort, and I don't have the means to get the help. How does that person get help? Well, you know what? Today we're going to dig in a little bit and kind of give a little bit some insight and maybe a little bit of the things that I've shared along the way in my journey to perhaps that they may work for somebody. You know what I mean? Perhaps, if somebody has an answer to that, maybe they can, leave a message and then we'll talk about it. You know what I mean? But I'm going to give you guys my input on how to deal with those types of things and perhaps maybe deal with them in a sense of, I guess, how do I put this in, I guess for the everyday person, you know what I mean? The everyday, I don't want to say normal addict or something like that, but it's for the people who don't have the means. You know what I mean? And a lot of us who are in addiction, man, or who are struggling with some sort of adversity, a lot of people don't know. They don't know that there's help. They don't know that there's a way out. You know what I mean? A lot of people think that probably, man, I got this dealt. This is the cards that are dealt for me as far as life cards go, and I got to deal with it. You know what I mean? How do I deal with it? And for a lot of people, they don't. They exit stage left, and that's what we don't want. We don't want people to do that. What we want is we want people to be informed and let them know that, hey, you know what? There is help for you, man. There is help for you, because if there was help for me and getting out of an addiction and getting out of depression and getting out of thinking suicidal and getting out of, PTSD things. I mean, I still deal with it, but there's a way to cope. You know what I mean? And for me, that is loading up what I call my recovery arsenal. You know what I mean? And I want to just kind of share a little bit of the things that I do. You know, for those of you who may be struggling in some sort of way, shape, or form, in some sort of adversity, addiction, whatever you want to call it, and just the possibility that these little nuggets can help you guys. You know what I mean? And because I know that treatment centers are expensive. Treatment centers are you got to have insurance, and you know, a lot of people don't want to go through the red tape of that being exposed in their life. You know what I mean? Especially if you got a problem, if your adversity is going to hinder your work environment or your life in that way. So a lot of people don't want to go through all that stuff, and they don't know if there's a different way. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just talk to you about a little, I guess, a couple of the of my journeys, and you know, at one point we're going to start with this one, and it was when I went to my second treatment center. I didn't know, you know, how I was going to deal with it. All I knew is that I was doing too much of some drugs. You know what I mean? I was just doing too much cocaine at that time, and unfortunately for me, I was selling cocaine and wound up using, and it took a toll. You know what I mean? And I found myself spiraling down pretty quickly, and didn't know how to get out of it. And so I had to go to a treatment center, and I had to actually admit myself to the hospital. You know what I mean? I admitted myself to the hospital because I was like, man, I what am I doing here? I don't know. I'm on this roller coaster ride that is taking off, and there's no brakes here. You know what I mean? There's no brakes here, because when I was, you know, see the amount of coke that I'm getting rid of, and it's just passing right in front of me, and I'm not talking just little bitty bags of stuff. I'm talking bricks of stuff. You know what I mean? And when I wound up indulging and just it was a spiral downward fall, and there was nothing there that was going to catch me except jail's institution or death. You know what I mean? And fortunately for me, it was an institution in the form of a treatment center, not death or jail. And but if you don't have that opportunity to hit a treatment center, then what do? You know what I mean? Are you going to keep going until you just run into the brick wall, or land in jail, or better yet, dead? I mean, you don't want to do that. And I believe that through my experiences, that it all starts in your mind. The process starts with the mental thought, with the mental thought process in dissecting your situation. Number one, okay? So that's one of the things you're gonna have to come clean with yourself. You don't have to clean with anybody else. You know what I mean? Because it's not about anybody else. Who gives a shit about anybody else at this point? At this point, if there's a problem, you need to come clean with you. And that's what I had to realize. I had to realize that, hey, you know what? I got to sit down and have a one-on-one with myself, number one, and dissect what it is that's happening here. What part of my life and what part of this addiction do I not have control over? And it just turns out that it was none of it. I had control over none of it, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? As much as I tried to talk myself into saying, man, you got this. You know, I can do it. It's only on the weekends. It's not a big deal. But it progressively got worse. You know what I mean? It progressively got worse. And I can tell you and be honest with you today and tell you that, man, I had to have it every day. Every day I had to do me a line. Every day, it got after the lines, it got to smoking, and it was just that was just the way it went. And it wasn't until I came clean with myself and decided, hey man, you know what? Things aren't looking good, brother. You know what I mean? You got to do something, or you're gonna wind up in jail, or you're gonna wind up dead. One or the other, man. And I can remember sitting at this place with my heart pounding and an ounce of cocaine in my hand and still wanted to do more. But at the same time, screaming out to myself internally saying, man, stop. You know what I mean? And I remember vividly that I sat there crying, but still doing a line, you know what I mean? And just like, dude, I need to stop. What do I got to do to do something different? And because at that point, I was already getting to a point where I wasn't caring about anything about what was happening to me or my family. You know what I mean? That's how bad it got. And I'm it's unfortunate that it was like that, because I hurt a lot of people, you know what I mean? And I was hurting myself too. And it wasn't until I decided, you know what? Okay, we got to have us a one-on-one intervention here. And it doesn't have to be this whole intervention thing with a lot of people, you know what I mean? It's got to start with you. The intervention's got to be you, man. It's got to be the one-on-one intervention with you, because you're the one who knows what the problem is. That's number one. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what's happening in your mind but you. And I had to come to realization about that. You know what I mean? I had to come to the realization that, hey, dude, you know what? It's your dealing. It's your doing right now. You're here, and this is happening because of what's happening up in here with you. And until you get that twisted up and get them kinks worked out, nothing's going to happen but more worse things. You know what I mean? And, I was grateful that I got to go to a treatment center. You know what I mean? And for those of you who can't, well, here's my take on that is, number one, again, like I said, it's a mental thing, and you have to start chipping away at it little by little. And what I mean by that is that you're going to have to start doing changes in your life. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to, and this is not going to be an easy road. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you or anything like that. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle, but it's how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to change your life around? How bad do you want your family to see you in a better place? How bad do you want to see you in a better place? You know what I mean? Because everybody can want you to be this way and that way, but if you don't want to do it on your own, well, guess what? It's not going to happen. And until you get that mental thought process right and start feeding spiritual and positive things in here, into your subconscious mind, then in turn there, your actions will start reflecting accordingly. You know what I mean? And right now, if you're bound down to any sort of obstacles or adversities or addiction, guess what? Your thought process is all about fear and negativity and just dark thoughts. You know what I mean? That's how your thought process is right now. You're fearful of what people are going to think. You're fearful of, you thinking that you're not good enough. You're fearful of not using anymore. You're fearful of, how am I going to live my life without the things that I know now, because I've been here too long? How is that going to happen? And for a lot of people, that fear, man, just turns into more addiction. It turns into more adversity and more obstacles. And I'm here to tell you, man, through experience, that when you start changing your thought process with mental, spiritual, and positive things, and surrounding yourself with, spiritual, positive things, and reflecting on that, because if you dissect yourself right now, if you're in that struggle, look at the things around you. Look at your environment. Look at how you're living your life through the daily, who you're hanging out with, and what kind of actions are you doing. And I can guarantee you this, that everything that you're thinking is pretty much all either fearful or negativity. You know what I mean? And until you change that, then guess what? Nothing's going to happen. And that's the bottom line. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit here and tell you that recovery and spirituality and positivity is just, really easy. And no, heck no, man. You have to work at it. You know what I mean? You got to work at it. It's a lifestyle, and it's something that you're going to have to do repetitively on a daily basis to get out of that situation that you're in. But I'm here to tell you that you can do it. You know what I mean? And, and I've been to a few treatment centers. You know what I mean? I've been to a few treatment centers, and I've also had, years of sobriety. You know what I mean? My longest stint of sobriety, I had 10 years of sobriety at one point in time in my life after my second treatment center. You know what I mean? And because I sat down and heard somebody's story and decided to do what they do to get to where they were at and to get how they were feeling, I decided to incorporate that guy's thought process, that guy's recovery arsenal. I borrowed it and I continue to use it today. You know what I mean? And it got me 10 years of sobriety. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for that. But had I not took that first step and had that one-on-one with myself and said, dude, okay, what are we going to do here? Because you can't do it by yourself. You haven't been able to. It's been a minute already. You know what I mean? And it's okay to ask for help, my brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? It's okay to be vulnerable, because you have to be. You have to be vulnerable, man, in order to recover. Because if you're not, if you're putting up walls, man, is it going to be a struggle? And I can tell you from experience. You know what I mean? And I can tell you this, it's easy to go back. You know what I mean? I had 10 years of sobriety and relapse. You know what I mean? I relapsed for 5 years, man. 5 years of struggle, man, and it sucked. But I'm here today, clean and sober, and I got more things, more weapons in that recovery arsenal that I talk about, because I've got more nuggets out of different stories from different people who have been there and done that, and I decided to adopt some of those things into my own, and I'm here today, clean and sober, talking to you guys, feeding you a story that perhaps can help you. You know what I mean? And it all starts, like I said, mental thought process, doing little things, positive things every single day on a repetitive basis. Even if it's just, chanting an affirmation, waking up in the morning and chanting an affirmation, whatever it is that you want to do, and doing it to whatever being, whoever you believe in, whatever you believe in. But so long that it comes from here and then you mean it. And that you're open-minded, willing, and truthful about the change. Because if you're not, it's not going to happen. You got to be 100% full-fledged, delivered in there. You know what I mean? You can't just, put one foot in the water. You can't just touch it for a minute. You can't just walk halfway in. It's not going to happen. Things ain't going to work like that. You're going to see a little bit of the light, but you ain't going to see it all. I can guarantee you there's going to be a pitfall that you're not going to see, and you're going to go down there. It's going to be hard to get out. You know what I mean? So just know that you got to be open-minded, you got to be willing, you got to be truthful, and doing things on a consistent basis is key. And so, if you're struggling and you don't have the means to get the help, here's what I need you to do. I need you to first, number one, sit down tonight and dissect that thing with yourself. Dissect your problem with yourself and talk to yourself as if you want the resolution. Because when you sit in silence and you sit there and you just think about you, it's going to come to you. It's going to come to you on what you need to do. And you can either go out of a few different ways, you know what I mean? Once you realize that, okay, I understand that I need the help. I understand that my life's, there's a struggle here. And when I do this, I go down, and when I do that, I go down, and when and you just got to get to those things. And sometimes journaling it helps out, because I know I had to do that. I had to journal a lot of things, and I did it on a daily basis. I journaled. That was one of the key things that I did, was journaling every single day the things that I felt that were bad, and the things that I felt that I wanted. And I journaled the things that I did when I had the good feelings. You know what I mean? When I felt like, okay, I accomplished something, and okay, you know, maybe I went to a meeting and just sat there. I didn't have to share a story, but I just sat in to hear other people's stories. And that was one thing I would write down in my journal. And like I said, on a consistent basis, I said, you know what? Tomorrow, if I can't make a meeting, if I can't make a peer support group, that I'm going to check out an encouraging thing on podcast, and I'll journal that down. And I'll hear somebody, what they got to say, what kind of information they got, what kind of adversities that they went through and came out of, and that sort of thing. And I take little nuggets out of different people's stories, you know what I mean? Because they all help. You know what I mean? Because not everybody's story is going to be reflective of yours, but everybody's piece of a story will be reflected of yours. Because I guarantee you, everybody's story, you'll be able to relate to some part of that story. And those are the things that those are the nuggets that you pull out. You know what I mean? And you incorporate them into your own. And when you journal things down and do things on a repetitive basis, is when you start, your mental thought process starts changing. You know what I mean? That negative and fearful way of thinking starts going away. And when that happens, and you get all these positive, encouraging things coming into your subconscious mind, because this is all that you're involving yourself in, well, guess what? In turn, here's the thing, just so the people who don't know, when you do good things in your actions, you know what I mean? Say you opened up a car door for somebody, opened up a door for an old lady going into the store, you know, maybe smiled at somebody. Maybe, you know, say, hey, how is your day going? Are you doing good? Concern, you know, compassion, mindfulness. When you're doing things like that, you're not doing those because all day long you've been thinking negative things and fearful things and dark things. Like, you know, when you're doing that, when I was in the world of addiction, those are the kind of thoughts I had. You know what I mean? Was I opening doors for people and helping people out? No, man. I didn't give a shit about nobody. You know what I mean? All I thought about, okay, where are we going to get these, where's the next shit going to come from, and who do I got to burn, or who do I got to get over on to get the next one, you know what I mean? That's how the thought process was. You weren't thinking negative. I mean, you weren't thinking positive and spiritual, you know what I mean? You were thinking, you know, fight or flight. You know what I mean? You were thinking, okay, you know, you were always up on your P's and Q's, and you were in the street life, right? So you weren't thinking like that. But I guarantee you, man, your mental thought process change, your actions are going to change, because that's how it happens. When you start putting positive and spiritual things in this brain of yours, and that ingrain those things in your subconscious mind, those are the kind of things, when something's in your subconscious mind, whether you know it or not, when those are the actions that you're doing. So if you're doing good and prosperous things, spiritual things, positive things, well then guess what? Those are the kind of things that you're allowing into your subconscious mind. And those are the things that ingrain in there. And those are the things that map your life the way it goes. So if you're not doing those sort of things, that means you need to change that. That's where the process of change is. You know what I mean? You don't have to be at a treatment center for this to be happening. You know what I mean? You don't have to be, you know, at Laurel Ridge or whatever the treatment center is. You don't got to be at any of those places for that to start happening. That can start happening tonight, today for you. You know what I mean? All you got to do is stop and get some quiet time and dissect the things that are happening in your life, and then affirmate things that you want in a positive way. And for me, I had to do affirmations. I had to consistently read. I do consistently read. I read Christian books. I read the Bible. I read Buddhist books, Islam books, Judaism, Taoism, Hinduism. I read everything that has to do with some sort of faith that's going to help me. And every little bit of these things, of different cultures and stuff like that, I gather and I put them in my recovery arsenal because they work. You know what I mean? When people are doing things for the good, for the better good of humanity, well, then why not incorporate that stuff into your life? You know what I mean? Why incorporate the darkness and things that are not good? You know, it's pretty it's pretty much black and white, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And so it could start by you watching more video podcasts like this, by watching maybe some sermons of different religions, watching philosophical stuff, maybe doing a lot of reading. You know, libraries got books of all sorts. You know, you can download books online, you know, of people who have struggled with whatever you're struggling with, and see what they're doing. And also research, you know, groups. Because every city and every little town, there's groups of people who are struggling with things in their life, and they meet up on a weekly basis. And they help. When you start surrounding yourself with communities like that, those are the kind of things, and those are the kind of things that you need to put yourself in front of. Because those are the types of people and the types of situations that want to help you get better and live a better spiritual and productive and positive life. You know what I mean? And you know, if you're sitting there and gonna hang out in the streets or at the bandos or at the motels or you know, out at the plug's house or whatever, you know what I mean? If you're doing that, well then guess what? Those are the kind of things that you're gonna become, because you eventually become a product of your environment. You know what I mean? And those are just facts. You know what I mean? This is not something that I came up with or that I made up or something like that. No, these are serious statistical facts. You know, there's theories and scientific proof in a lot of the stuff. You know what I mean? So, you know, these are just all parts of different programs that work. The things that I talk about, you know what I mean? And personal experience is number one, you know what I mean? I don't sugarcoat nothing, and I just, you know, just know that if you want out, if you need help, if you don't know how to do it, there's ways out. And just follow some of the things that I talked about, you know what I mean? And if you need more help, you know, shoot me a comment. I'll always love to get a one-on-one with anybody, man, and navigate them the right way, you know what I mean? So you have an option here with me, you know what I mean? And when you get with people who want to help other people, man, I guarantee you, man, your life will start looking a whole lot better, brother. And but yeah, you know, I'm just grateful that I'm able to sit here and share a story with you guys, you know what I mean? And that was the whole point of today's video podcast, was just share a little bit of something with somebody to maybe encourage you to take that first step. And if you're already in that, you know, if you already took that first step, maybe this is just another little nudge so you can keep on moving forward and sharing, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, you know, I would be doing you a disservice if I was sitting here just talking a bunch of shit. You know what I mean? And I'm not. So, you know, just know that when I say things, they're things from experience and things that I know have worked for me. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys watching my video podcast today. I greatly appreciate it. If you please give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, share my channel. I'd greatly appreciate that. It's the only way that we're going to be able to share and, you know, just help more people to get on this side of recovery, positivity, spirituality, man. So I greatly appreciate everybody's, you know, your thumbs up and all that stuff, man. Thank you very, very much. Thanks a lot. So I guess until the next time, man, on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.